72% of people will have one traumatic incident in their lifetime. Most officers in a small to a medium-sized department, which is 50 people or less, are going to have 188.5 in a 20-year career. So, but again, that's just average, and we're thinking about, Iowa and Montana,
smaller departments,
all these things.
Yeah,
but really, probably in the Chicagoland area, probably it's closer to 400 to 600.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Dispatch. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Just do us a favor, hit that like, subscribe button. It really does help out the algorithm. We have reached over 1,000 subscribers total. Thank you very much for that, you guys. We appreciate it helping us reach that goal. We're going to be shooting for another 2,000 here soon. So please keep hitting that like, hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel. It helps out the algorithm. Without further ado, we have Dr. Carrie Steiner in the studio. She is my therapist. She was a Chicago police officer, I believe, for, was it over 10 years?
13 years.
13 years. Mm-hmm. And then she left law enforcement, and she had found a better path. Honestly, I think.
Yeah,
great path.
I think it's a good path. I'm so happy that I became a police officer because I think it helps me now, but I love what I do. I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let you guys know, Dr. Steiner is a badass. All right. This is our second time recording. We had a malfunction with the cameras. We bought brand new cameras, and then we double recorded the audio, and we tried like hell to get the audio saved. It didn't work, but she told some fucking badass stories, and her and I have talked in length about her career. So she crammed a lot in 13 years. There's one story I was like, Dr. Steiner, like, did this happen? You're like, oh my God, yeah, I forgot about it. Which we'll get into. Which we will get into. But Dr. Steiner, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I became a Chicago police officer in 1998, and it was definitely a different, police time then. And the first day that I actually went to the district after the academy, my FTO told me that we were going to go to a wake, and I just assumed that it was probably one of his friends. Or our family, and I was just like, I'm sorry, who passed? And he's like, oh, it's a guy on days. He killed himself.
Oh, God.
And so I was like, wow, okay, that's my first day, And then 3 days later, I almost got into a shooting. A guy came at me with a knife for a domestic, and, I had my finger on the trigger, and I almost, was going to go, and then he finally dropped it. And then we also had... That week, I also had a guy that was shot in the head, and he was down like about 3 or 4 stairs. And at the time, we would, bring the bodies in the paddy wagon. So I was on the paddy wagon that day, and, they, of course, wanted the PBO to, do most of it. I didn't know, because again, in the academy, they tell you all the things that you're supposed to do. So I put on that white suit.
Your Tyvek suit?
Yeah, exactly. And everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing? But this was a bloody scene, you know? And I was just like, I have a brand new uniform. So I was like, I don't want to get it all gross, This guy had brain matter, on the wall and everything. So when we were scooping him up, we were actually trying to scoop some of, the brain matter and other pieces of the brain and stuff. And so we were carrying, him up, and they actually, the old timer had me carry at the bottom. And so then when he got to the top, he accidentally dropped it on me.
Oh, very nice of him.
Yeah. Because, in Chicago, they definitely, try to see what can you handle and stuff like that. So that was my first week, and I was like, welcome to the jungle.
Yeah, right. And you said PBO earlier. That means probationary officer?
Yes.
Right. Okay, cool. So like when you was at the first year and a half, I'm not sure if they change it, but for my police department was the first year and a half you're in probation.
Yes,
so if there's
18 months.
Yeah. So if there's any issues with you as a law enforcement or safety issues, whatever, they could terminate you.
Yes.
Without issues.
Yes. And that's why too, all of these things that happen, I just took it, right? Because you're just like, I don't want to get fired. So
100%.
So I just got mad at the guy, and but my, white little Pyrex thing was all bloody. And then the guy said, do we have another one in there? Because I want one. So it was, it was a very quick orientation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Into, real police work, and then I was in the 18th district, which is actually one of the quote good districts in Chicago.
Right.
So
And where's that out? North?
that's like, part of Lincoln Park,
Okay.
part of the Gold Coast, but you also do have Cabrini Green. And at that time, Cabrini Green was much more active. But again, still, generally it was considered a great, district to be. But, a lot happens in Chicago, so it doesn't really matter where you
you're
are.
at. It'll find you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing that, impacted me, right, is that all of these things happened within the first week. And I was like, I really got to figure this out, because you don't have a lot of time to process when you're new. Or any time,
that's
right?
That's the last thing on your mind when you're new. Like, I need to keep my job. What do I need to do to keep my job? I need to perform. Like, yeah,
exactly.
That's the last thing
did
on your
I
mind.
do the paperwork right?
Right.
Did I, I don't know, bag them up right? I had no idea.
Not thinking about how you just scoop this guy's brains back into the bag. Yeah,
not at all. Because a lot of people ask me, like, wasn't that so, overwhelming? And I'm like, no, not really. I just felt like, okay, this is my job. I got to do it.
Yeah.
But what did happen that first year is 2 other officers in my district killed themselves. And we had peer support and the EAP come out and they were like, what's going on in this district? Because that's a lot of people. And probably in the 18th district, maybe, we had like 600 people or so, maybe.
Right.
I don't know for sure, but maybe around that, maybe 300 a shift or something. And so I was that's a lot. And they were saying that's a lot. And then I was thinking, like, this isn't even supposed to be a bad district. So I'm like, what's going on here?
Uh-huh.
And then an old timer actually told me something that I thought was really cool. He said, you know what? You never know what's going to happen on this job. So he was like, Chicago right now allows you to go to school and they pay for it if you get an A, 100%. So he was like, go back to school, get a doctorate or something, just in case something happens to you. You could get injured, sued, something. And then also you'll have a second job at some point, right?
Right, exactly.
So I was like, you know what? I've always been interested in helping people. Obviously, that's why I became a police officer. So I, thought I was like, well, I'll become a therapist, And I just figured, well, if I'm going to go, why not be a doctor, a psychologist?
100%.
And so it took me like 10 years to do this, which is a long time. Usually it takes 6. But I was working,
Right, exactly. A full-time job.
Full-time job. Having to go to court sometimes. And unfortunately, the schools that I went to were not very conducive to understanding, like, if I have court, I can't come to class.
Right.
And then they would be like, well, then, you fail. And I'm like,
no shit.
Yeah. I was really surprised because they were not very accommodating.
And you think they would be.
Yeah.
Especially like you're a working adult.
Yes. Yeah.
And you have a full-time job.
Yeah. No, I had one of my advisors tell me, either you want to be the police or you want to be a psychologist. So you need to make a decision.
Really?
Yeah. And so I was like, look at me now.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
A
few choice words for you now.
Exactly. So I think that, and what I actually found is that when I was in the school, I found that actually a lot of the teaching, even though they would say, like, if this is, an emergency, right, you have to call 911.
Right.
They often talked very negatively about the police and had really no idea of what would happen if you would call 911. So when I told them in a class, I was like, do you know, because we were talking about suicide and, protocol and stuff like that. I go, do you guys know what happens in Chicago when you call 911? And they were like, oh, well, they'll just take them to the hospital. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, do you know how we will do that? And I was like, we're going to put them in handcuffs. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, if you're telling us, that person might be suicidal or homicidal, I have all of these weapons on me. There is no way I'm going to have him in the back of my car, right? Not cuffed.
Right.
And they were overwhelmed with that. And I was like, you guys are using the police, but have no idea of what actually we do and
Right.
what, how it works. And so that was kind of, also like giving me a lot of information, because also, as a police officer, right, we would also drop people off all the time that were mentally ill, that needed inpatient. And, so I was getting both sides, right, and also living it. But then now I'm also, as I, kept on going in my career, I was doing internships and things like that. And so I was seeing both sides. But what I was seeing is that I was like, these two, even though we actually do a lot of the same things.
A lot.
And when people would say, like, how did you get into psychology from policing? I'm like, do you know what the number one tool is that's used in policing? This thing, your mouth.
1,000%.
Yeah. And so I was like, it's not that different. I mean, it is. But
Right.
I was like, but, as a police officer, you're a social worker, you're, a hostage negotiator, you're a, party planner, you're all these things.
Everything. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I was like, it's not that far really different. And so, but I just, obviously I started to notice like where I felt like some things in the psychology community really didn't understand policing. And then I also saw with what I was learning about trauma and PTSD and things like that, that when I would go back to work, I would see those symptoms.
And the people you worked with.
The people that I worked with. And then I think back to, in 13 years, I knew 17 officers that killed themselves. That is not all the Chicago police officers that killed themselves. Those are the ones that I knew. And so I was like, in my personal life, I don't know anybody that's done that.
Right. And 17 cops.
17 cops.
Wow.
Yeah.
If that doesn't tell you we have a problem.
Right.
I don't know what will.
Exactly. So I was like, going back and forth, learning about trauma, learning about PTSD, and then, going into my psychology, and I'm like, wow, nobody knows this. We're not taught that coming into policing, like
at all.
That's not normal to see that amount of trauma, to, also lose coworkers like that. I don't know any officer from a small department to a big department that doesn't know another officer that's killed themselves.
Yeah.
And if I asked attorneys or, any other group of people, I do not think that would be the same.
No. We've all heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And there is definitely a big difference, because like I've tried therapy outside of First Responders out in Lombard, which you were owner of. Mm-hmm. And then I've also had a therapist that I've tried who just deals with like regular individuals day in, day out.
Yeah.
And there's a difference.
Yeah.
A huge difference.
Yeah.
You guys have, and I know your team has like a different insight on kind of what makes first responders ticks for firefighters, for police officers, because just like you said, like an average person only sees what, like one or two.
Yes. In a lifetime.
Yeah, traumatic experiences.
Yeah. 72% of people will have one traumatic incident in their lifetime. Most officers in a small to a medium-sized department, which is 50 people or less, are going to have 188.5 in a 20-year career. So, but again, that's just average, and we're thinking about, Iowa and Montana,
smaller departments,
all these things.
Yeah.
But really, probably in the Chicagoland area, probably it's closer to 400 to 600.
Insane.
Yeah. And so thinking about that, and that's what I learned in school, that was like the big aha moment for me, is all the studies show that the more trauma a human is exposed to, the more likely they are going to be desensitized, lack empathy, internalize and develop a mental health issue like anxiety, depression, PTSD, or externalized by gambling, cheating, drinking, all of these things. And so I was like, right. I was like, that's exactly what policing is like, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I dated guys and they would be like, you're not very sensitive, especially for a girl, right?
Right.
And I was like, I don't know what to do about that.
I feel normal.
Exactly. Especially talking to the guys, I was like, oh, this happened,
Right. 100%.
I remember one time there was a lady that died probably from an overdose or something, and we didn't know who she was. And I just went over there and I was like flipping her around because I was trying to like go in her pants to get maybe,
Whatever was in there.
ID or
Yeah.
something. And my partner was like, you're kind of, she is dead. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just,
Doing my job.
Exactly. And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, and so you kind of like,
You don't think of it.
yeah, you look at yourself and you're like, God, am I being like,
Cold-hearted or
cold-hearted? And I was like, I didn't think so. I'm just trying to do my job and just trying to get her ID. But he was like, well, you're kind of just moving her around, and I'm like, I mean, I wasn't doing anything wrong, but he just kind of noticed that. And I was like, so there was definitely moments like that, right, that I also noticed, okay, I'm also experiencing these things, that I'm learning, right, and that I'm seeing as well. And then I'm like, oh, wow, we're all doing this, right? And then I realized that this does change you. The job does change you.
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah. And what I also realized is that there's a culture here. And we talk so much in the community now, and especially within psychology, about being culturally competent and understanding. But yet there's still so many people in this industry that don't think or don't believe that there's actually a culture in police, fire, dispatch.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're wrong, because there is.
Yes, exactly.
There 100% is.
Absolutely. Right.
100%.
They are totally wrong. And so I've been trying to preach this and, let people know. And when you're saying like coming to us is a completely different experience, it's because we're more culturally competent.
Right.
I allowed you to have a gun in the office. You can be in uniform. I have one way in, one way out. I leave doors open so people can look, and not
as
feel
they're walking around. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because I know, like, otherwise you're like, what's behind the corner?
Right, 100%. Right.
Yeah. So we do a lot of little things to make it a conducive environment.
Yeah, and I usually do majority of like 99% of my therapy sessions with you are like online. Mm-hmm. But I have been in the office a few times when I first started coming, and it was very welcoming. You walk into your main lobby, you guys have music playing. Mm-hmm. You go to each room has like its own little sound machine. It's definitely very calming, very peaceful, and very welcoming there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, what was really cool and precious to me is that one of our clients actually said that he was going to make a man cave. And he actually used the color that we have in our office because that makes me feel so good.
Calming.
Yeah.
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 And it does.
That was so cool.
And we'll get into all that stuff because like there's so many different things we can talk about, smells and all breathing techniques and all that stuff. But so for law enforcement, there's one more story I wanted you to bring up. It was the one that you forgot the first time as well. Where it was like you got into a shooting, right? And it was your sergeant. Or some, I mean, there's a few.
I know. This is when you asked me, did I get into a shooting? And I go, no, only one. And then we start talking about it, and I was like, oh no, probably 5.
No,
maybe
probably
6. Because I guess like I did, and I still even like when you said, well, you got into a shooting with your sergeant, and even now, like I was like, no, I didn't.
No, I didn't.
I was like. So what happened is we were in the Lathrop homes, and there was a guy shooting, and so me and my partner went the opposite way, and we figured we could come behind this guy and surprise him. We did say on the radio, we're coming behind. Mm-hmm. However, I guess my sergeant didn't hear, and so he started shooting at him, which meant that he was shooting at us. So we had to duck and hit behind, some cars, right?
Right.
And so then we just kept giving him a hard time, like, you almost killed us.
100%.
Yeah, so that was kind of crazy, but, we just kind of laughed it off. But I was like, I mean, we could have died.
100%.
Yeah. Luckily, he was a bad shot.
Please tell me you told him that, too.
Of course I did.
Thank God you were a horrible shot, or else I'd be fucking dead right now.
Exactly.
Oh, fuck, Doc. You can't make that shit up.
Exactly.
You can't make that shit up.
You can't.
But let's dive into first responders wellness. Mm-hmm. So you started. Did you start your firm? It's your
company.
Your company mm-hmm. as you were still a police officer, correct? So how did this all transpire? Because I know you said you had lost 17 officers to suicide. I'm assuming that kind of had a play in it.
Yeah. Well, actually, what really did me in And this is where, like, I mean, it was a combination of things, but as I'm, continuing to see these things, I'm like, that is not good. But I was a CIT coordinator, and so I would teach officers how to de-escalate people in mental health crisis.
Oh, crisis intervention for CIT.
Crisis intervention, yeah. And so, I always had, 30 people in the room, training them and things like that. And I'd always give my number out just in case somebody, needed something. And, but also, because Chicago sometimes has lots of shootings and stuff like that, I was doing Operation Safe Passage, which is just crossing some kids across the street so they wouldn't get shot at, right? And all of a sudden I get a phone call, and, technically you shouldn't be answering the phone, but I just had a feeling like I need to answer this.
Right.
So I answer it, and the guy says, "Hey, I was in your class last week." And he was like, "I'm reaching out because I'm not doing well." And I'm like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Well, I have a gun in my lap." And he goes, "And I want to kill myself."
No, fuck.
And I was just like stunned because I just didn't expect that, would ever be a call, right?
Right.
And in Chicago, we have an EAP. So I told him, let's go over to EAP. They can see you, and take care of you. And he said, "I just left." And I felt the therapist did not understand, made it seem like I, was making this a bigger deal, and I didn't feel any empathy, and it was horrible.
And for people who don't understand, like, it takes a lot for an officer to step up and actually go see somebody, because we have a social worker at our police department, and I don't think anyone uses her.
Right.
Because that's like a whole stigma on it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one is, you don't want other officers to think in any way that you can't emotionally handle the job, right? Because it's life or death out there, so you have that. But then also, especially, since we're in Illinois, we have a firearms identification card that you have to have usually to work as a police officer. And if you go inpatient ever, you lose that.
Right.
And most clinicians don't even fully understand that don't work in this field. I was like, you have to understand that when a first responder, especially a police officer, right, or any law enforcement goes in Illinois to a clinician, they actually could lose their job.
Yeah.
Because if they say, "I'm suicidal," and they go inpatient, they're going to lose their FOID. And although, like, Chicago is bigger, they could probably do maybe a light duty status. Most departments cannot do that.
Right.
And it also, right now, it takes a year or more to get it back.
Yeah.
So it's a huge deterrent for officers, here to go out.
Yeah.
So it is such a huge deal, just like you said. And so you don't want to screw that up. And so here he is. And I guess, in Chicago, that's what I was always trained, is that if an officer has a problem, call EAP.
Right.
And then I was like, well, he didn't like EAP. So now who do I
That's a huge red flag.
send him to?
That's massive. If he stepped up, went there, and then they'd be like, "Oh no, you're making this up."
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I guess he just felt like they just minimized it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not that bad.
Right.
Other officers have it worse, and and that. And again, I don't know,
Right.
what happened in there, but nevertheless, he came out feeling worse, and then he's asking for my help, and then I realized, what doctor can I call right now and say, "Hey, I have an officer. He has a gun in his lap, says he's going to kill himself. That's not going to involuntarily commit him."
Right.
Right. But then I'm also thinking that if he was in my class last week, he made an appointment for EAP, went to EAP, still didn't like it, and called me and is letting me know that, like, he's asking for help. He doesn't really want to do
1000%.
this. And so that's kind of what clicked for me. And that's when I was like, I think I'm needed in another way.
Yeah.
And I liked being a police officer, but I was like, I have this skill now. I know, 17 officers that have killed themselves. My partner also died as well. Did I tell you that story?
No. Let's roll into that one.
Well, I mean, I kind of think it's a suicide as well.
Okay.
But that was around 18 months on the job. We were working together, and, we have 2-man cars. Well, actually 3-man, but you have, each person has a different day off group. So you work with the same 2 people all the time, but you're in a squad car with another person.
Right.
So you get really close with them, you know
Absolutely.
everything about them. And I definitely knew, like, when he would come in sometimes, like, I could tell, that maybe he had been drinking, and maybe it didn't wear off quite yet,
Right. Little hangover.
Yeah, this is the 90s, and so
It's a little different back then.
yeah, exactly. And I was told, like, keep your eyes open, your mouth shut, so he was, old. He had 3 years on the job, right?
Right.
I only have
yeah.
a few months, so
Yeah.
I can't tell him what to do. So I would just say, like, oh, I should drive today. And he's like, yeah, you should probably do that. But then I was waiting in roll call, and usually Jack was always early. He was always early. And so we worked midnights. And so sometimes, like, people can sleep in or something like that. So I was like, wow, I was like, so weird. And so I'm calling him because I'm also like, I don't want him to get in trouble, so I can say some lie, maybe or
cover
something.
for him. Yeah,
exactly.
100%.
To the lieutenant, he's coming in any second. And then the lieutenant comes in and he tells us that my partner died. And he died of positional asphyxiation underneath the steering wheel because he was so drunk he got into a car accident, hit the guardrail.
Yeah.
And just by himself, hit it so hard. And then I guess he, passed out or something. And he was so under the influence, he ended up just dying of positional asphyxiation.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And so that day, again, I've been riding with him like every day, for a year, and we're close. I mean, he feels like a brother. And I'm just told in roll call with everybody else that my partner died.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there calling him and all these things. And then they're like, well, you're going to be 99, which means you're going to, drive by yourself. Well, we were 1822, which is Cabrini Green. So, it's kind of a dangerous place. It's
For you to be driving by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, and I'm still new, right? So
Were you at night shift or day shift?
Midnight.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, I've never done that before. And they were like, well, you're going to be 99. And I'm like, all right, and I was kind of nervous about that too. But like, nobody really asked me, how are you doing? Do you need a minute? Do you want to talk or anything? I was also the only female. So I just got up after roll call, went into the women's locker room, and I cried my eyes out.
Yeah.
And then I got my shit together and then went out there and worked 99.
And did your job.
And did my job. And so all of these things, right, have happened to me. And to be honest, like, my story isn't any different than most Chicago police officers. So that's why I'm like, I don't think I've been through that much,
Right. And everyone says that, though. Like, everyone who,
Right.
because like people were like, oh, you were in a shooting, like, blah, blah. Yeah, but you probably would have done the same thing I did. It just, I was in the wrong place, wrong time, I guess, in a sense.
I don't know about that.
But I mean, to put in perspective, guys, like that's crazy. You literally just lost your partner who you're with for months and months and months, and they become like a friend to you or like a family member to you that you rely on to keep you safe and you keep them safe. And then they're gone, and that's how you're told. And it's okay, go to your car and start your job.
Right.
And go handle calls where it's like, this could be a shooting or a robbery, a domestic or whatever it is.
Yes.
A DOA. Are you in the right mindset to be able to handle those calls? Absolutely not.
No. And I was just like, I hope I don't get anything crazy tonight because I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with it.
Right. And I remember, like, because I've told this story before, but like when I lost my best friend to suicide, I went back to work too early. And then like I'm behind a band of Dominic's, like, and a song comes on and it breaks you down. And then you get a call for a suicidal subject and you're like, oh, fuck. Like,
Right.
I can't handle this right now. Like I could barely handle my own emotions. And you go in there and you do your best because that's what you're there for. Like that's your job.
And I think that's also what, citizens don't understand is that officers have handled so many different calls and you don't know what call they were just on.
Right.
And then they come to you and now they're handling your call. And maybe you think this is the biggest deal. But if I just saw a baby dead,
right,
there's nothing that I'm going to now that's going to be as bad as that.
No.
Right. And so you do maybe don't have as much empathy. I don't think anybody would, right? If your baby died, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm so sorry that you got in a car accident. You'd be like, this is not a big deal.
Yeah, I'm sorry that your neighbor's blocking your mailbox, but
exactly.
like right now I can't fucking process this.
Right. Exactly. And so, I try to help people understand, and especially even as a therapist with couples, right? Because sometimes the partner doesn't understand, well, why are they so rude sometimes when they come home, or,
Right.
short and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, when you've dealt with life and death and now you're just asking, what paint color do you want on the wall? You're like, I don't care.
Fuck.
You know what I mean? Like, paint it. Don't paint it. It doesn't matter.
Don't care.
Not life or death, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
And I've actually brought that up to you as well, where it's like, this is happening. You're like, well, you're in fight or flight. That's what's happening. That's why you're so short. That's why you respond so sharply and so quickly back. Like, your body's thinking someone's going to come and attack and murder your whole family. That's why you're going through, and that's why you're acting the way you're acting. I'm like, holy fuck. But the nice thing about that is, it's like, when you are aware of something like that, when it starts to occur in real time, you're like, okay, what's going on right now? Why am I being short? Why am I being aggravated? Why am I responding the way I'm responding? It's because of my nervous system is off. Okay, what are some tips and tricks to do to get that taken care of?
Right.
What are some tips and tricks?
Yeah.
If we're talking about it, might as well bring it up, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what you're talking about is that, we as humans, right, automatically have a fight, flight, and freeze response, which has kept us humans around for so long, right?
Right.
And that is always going to override our frontal lobe, which is where we make bigger decisions. We have computers, we have skyscrapers, and things like that. But when we think we're in danger or somebody else is in danger, that frontal lobe shuts down and the limbic system goes on and says, uh-oh, we got to get ready, and you're scanning for threats. You're thinking about what can you do? And so what happens when people have been through a lot of trauma or they have post-traumatic stress disorder is that system goes off a little bit more quickly and more often. And so they're, scanning for threats. And the thing is that the body is still going through it. It doesn't matter if it actually happens or doesn't. The body is still going through that fight, flight, or freeze response. Now, obviously, the worse it gets, the more, it's going to go off.
Right.
But that's where, I'm talking to people, and I was, even talking, recently to a couple where every single time, this, person goes into church or, any type of place where there's a lot of groups of people, I was like, that person with PTSD is probably looking for threats, bags, entrance, exits. And so I was like, you went to church, but your partner actually had 3 shootings.
Yeah.
Because he actually was preparing himself for, okay, if this happens and this happens and this happens. So I was like, you didn't do the same thing. You think that you both did the same thing, but you didn't. He got into 3 shootings. You listened to the pastor.
Yep. He wasn't listening to anything.
Yeah.
Lights are on. No one's home.
Yeah.
Right. they're home, but they're just focusing on different things.
A few things,
Yes.
but they're, but then generally it's like, oh, what was that noise? Oh, is somebody coming in?
That's the one breaking in.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
Exactly. And if that happens, or is there anybody else here that, I think
could be a threat,
or, would help me, or am I going to have to do this all alone? I mean, most of the time we always think like, I'm the only one, right?
Yeah.
I'm the only one that's going to save the day. And that's a lot of stress and pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, that's your career field, right? Where like if shit hits the fan, everyone looks to you to take care of business. And that that instinct doesn't leave you. That instinct is now ingrained in you, because like even after my shooting, like hypervigilance was up my fucking ass, where like if I'm pulling and I'm in my car and I pull too close, I need to make sure I have enough room to get out.
Right.
Like if someone tries to box me in from behind, I need to be able to get out and pull away. If someone comes out with a gun, or just like you said, you walk into the restaurant, I can't have my back to the door.
Right.
I have to switch with my wife. I have to have my back to the wall so I can see and scan what's going on.
And that's exactly what, keeps humans alive, is to be able to say, hey, I was almost killed. So now I need to be very observant of my surroundings and always be thinking about how could I be killed, right? So the brain's actually doing the right thing. It's just that unfortunately, usually in our time, we usually don't get shot at a lot, or killed. Maybe some of us.
Bad luck.
But that again, limbic system goes off too much and too strongly, and then it makes it very difficult to live in the world, because that's why people with PTSD then avoid things, because they're like, I don't like to be driving my car and thinking somebody's getting too close. They're gonna attack me. They're going to bump me. They're going to
Right.
try to get me to the side of the road, and they're going to rob me and take my car and,
Right.
da-di-da-di-da, right? And it's just like, and you have the whole story, right?
Already planned out, going through your brain.
Everything. And that's why I'm saying, like, as an example, like church, right? You're not in church. You're thinking about all these things,
Right.
and that's what makes it different. And that's what's hard for people with PTSD or even their partners to understand, because they're technically experiencing the same thing, but not at all.
Right, exactly. You guys are in the same room, but you're having totally different experiences. And that goes with everybody. Like, you never know what a person's actually going through.
Yes.
Right? And so always keep that in mind, too. It's like when you are in traffic and you're having a fucking bad day and you start to get a little bit of the case of a road rage and someone cuts you off, instead of flipping out, like, that person could be having a bad day, too.
Right.
And the last thing you want is to get in an altercation in traffic. But it's like everyone has their own shit going on.
Yeah.
But
so one of the techniques, and I forgot about going into the coping skills, but I wanted people to understand how the brain kind of works and why that happens.
Absolutely, because then people get stuck, right?
Right, exactly.
If you get stuck in that fight or flight, your nervous system could get stuck in that situation.
Yep.
But there's other things too that play an effect, like nicotine, I think, has an effect on your nervous system.
Right, caffeine.
Caffeine has an effect on your nervous system.
Yes, and what do most police, fire
Fucking
everybody?
thrive.
Caffeine, these energy drinks.
Smoking cigarettes or vaping or you're dipping or you have the pouches or you're smoking a cigar.
Yes.
It's
so
fun.
you're doing a lot of things that actually are not conducive. But the things that can really help is stimulating the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is something that relaxes the body and says, oh, now I'm not in danger. Now I'm okay. So things that stimulate the vagus nerve is actually deep breathing, because when you can actually be mindful of your breath and say, okay, I'm going to really take a deep breath here and be mindful and present, right? Then the body knows I'm not being shot at, because you would never do that if you were being shot at,
right?
Right? Or really injured. So as soon as you are proactively using some of these skills, right, the body can say, oh, I can calm down. Now, sometimes I have clients that are like, well, I did the deep breathing, but I still felt anxious. I'm like, yeah, you got to give yourself a little time. It's
not just like a light switch.
It is not. Your body has to still get rid of that cortisol, have to, have more vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system and all these things happening. But the more you use those coping strategies and the more, the longer you do them, the more the body is going to calm down.
Right.
One of the other things that is really effective is the physiological sigh, which is inhaling as much as you can, then inhaling just a little bit more, really filling up the lungs, and then exhaling out.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that has been studied in Harvard, and they're saying that is like one of the fastest ways to get that vagus nerve activated.
Yeah.
So I'm really teaching that a lot. But most officers and firefighters either do tactical breathing or skip breathing,
right?
Which is also helpful.
Very
which
close.
Is inhale, hold, exhale.
Now, if you're doing breath work, now that's more towards like your stomach area, right? So
yes.
You want to expand in your stomach, not your chest. You're not going to hit that
yes.
vagus nerve if you're doing it in your chest.
Yes. Yeah, because that actually can be more like ventilating.
Yeah.
So you really want to do it like balloon breathing, right?
Right.
Where it's like you really have to take it from there. Because if you blow up a balloon and only do it, from your chest, you get lightheaded.
Yep.
And so really focusing on that.
And it does work because like I've experienced plenty of panic attacks. I just had one recently, maybe a few weeks ago, where I felt like a pop in my ear, and then it just like a ring came across my brain, and then I automatically thought I was having a stroke because I'm at higher risk for stroke.
Right.
So that's like the first. And I'm reading my kid a book,
yeah,
and I start panicking, and he can then I can see I'm upsetting him. Then that just throws me even more.
Right.
I'm telling you, my body was shaking. It was like shaking, like I had tremors, and you feel like your whole world's coming in on you. You feel like this is it. I'm dying. I'm dead. Like your body's just losing control. So like.
Right.
I started with breath work, working on the stomach, taking those deep breaths, calming myself down. I went to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face.
Yes.
I splashed cold water on the left side of my neck. It took like 30, 45 minutes for me and my nervous system to kind of just regulate.
Right.
And I opened up Trader Joe's fucking solid. It has like these these pops. They're not pops, but it's like a flavored water.
Uh-huh.
It has like coconut or lemon and lime in it.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Well, I
Yeah.
remember you telling me about like if you get a lemon or a lime or an orange, like you can like roll in your hand. I didn't have any, so I just opened one of those and I would sniff the citrus,
Right.
and just kind of like try to use all my tools for my toolbox.
Right, exactly. So what you're talking about is in the limbic system, right? That is the fight, flight, freeze. That's kind of the animal response. So what we're paying attention to is our senses, right? I see a gun, I hear, right, somebody in my house. And so how you can kind of get out, right, of that panicky feeling or that arousal is by specifically giving yourself a new sense. So that's why smelling that lemon, putting cold water on your face, it kind of helps you to realize, oh, I'm just putting cold water on my face, right?
Right.
And it can kind of almost like shock you out of it. So that's why that works.
Oh, it definitely works. I notice a difference. And I get a full 2 hands full, and I just throw. I don't give a fuck if I'm making a mess. There's water everywhere. Like I'm just throwing it on me.
Right.
But I was like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Just give me 2 minutes. Just give me
Exactly.
2 minutes. I'm having a panic attack."
Exactly. Yeah.
But we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll jump back into it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Murphy Carter Law. This one I'm proud to announce. This is a great partnership with us. They are a phenomenal law firm. I've known Rick for a very long time. He's a fantastic guy. Heart of gold. He supports organizations like Project Fire Buddies who give back to kids with terminal illness. This guy cares. He is a staunch advocate for first responders. He's just a blue-collar guy. He really is. He was a union construction worker at one point, and now he's just a shark in the courtroom. And that's just a fact. You're not going to go wrong by going with Murphy Carter Law. I promise you that. They will fight for you like they fight for their own family, like they fight for their mother, like they fight for their father, their brother, or their sister. That's just who they are. And they advocate for you guys. I promise they will fight for you guys tooth and nail. That's what they're all about. To make you guys whole again, or to get you close to that as possible, and by any means necessary. They've won major cases already. I have some notes over here. They have $11.5 million truck accident case. They have a $9.5 million medical malpractice case and another $7.1 million delivery truck accident. They handle their business. If you're looking for a lawyer, if you've been in a situation like Carrie and I have, Murphy Carter Law, check them out. Go to murphycarterlaw.com. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Tell them that Beyond the Dispatch sent you. So we were talking about psilocybin. I've been doing a lot of research on it with for brain injuries, PTSD. They're saying there's a lot of positives with it regrowing neural pathways in the brain. And I asked you your opinion.
Yeah, I think that it seems very promising. Again,
Right.
I, was sharing that I still would want to do some research, and I think they're still doing some research on it, but it does seem very promising. And I think that we do need to continue to look for other treatments for,
100%.
these issues, because especially with TBI and PTSD, we really have limited, understanding of those in recent years.
Right.
And even now, especially with TBIs, there's not much you can do really for mild traumatic brain injuries that the average doctor will know, what to do or how to help you. And there are a lot of first responders that do get a traumatic brain injury, but it's not to the point, right, where they can't talk or take care of themselves, but you can't remember things, you forget things, you have word finding difficulties, all of that. And that's the stuff that is still a mild traumatic brain injury.
Right.
And so, I'm really excited about seeing, what's going to happen with that, or if it's going to get legalized and things like that.
Absolutely. Because I've also heard too where individuals will take it and then they microdose it, where it's not the amount of work you're getting that that psychological or that effect, right?
Yeah. You're not going to hallucinate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a smaller dose, and then they find that they are able to come off like SSRIs. So they're done with Lexapro, they're done with Wellbutrin, and then it helps like rewire the brain. So very exciting. I'm keeping my eye on it because I think that's a great thing for types of communities, for veterans, for law enforcement, for first responders, or anyone who has a TBI or PTSD. Colin, do you have something?
No, I had a coworker that dealt with depression, and he did ketamine therapy, and that seems to completely have fixed whatever he was going through. So that just another.
Yeah, ketamine is often used for people who really are not very antidepressant medications don't work very well, or
Right.
there's been a limit to it. Some people just don't respond as well. So ketamine has been great for a lot of people. Ketamine is also used for PTSD. We also have the stellate ganglion block shot, the SGB shot, which is used for PTSD, which stops the nightmares and the arousal from happening usually for most people. So there are a lot of, different types of medications and different types of things going on. And we even do neurofeedback and biofeedback, because exactly what you're talking about is we're trying to rewire the brain. There is neuroplasticity in the brain, so the brain can rewire itself, but you have to do something to,
Right, to get it
do
to
it.
work, right.
Yeah.
It's just not going to do it by itself.
Yeah. I think I talk about this a lot, is that I always say that, after a trauma, right, you can think negatively about yourself or, other people or something like that, and you get fixated on that. And you keep taking that same path. Like, I just, had a panic attack and I'm weak and what's wrong with me and that kind of thing.
Right.
You keep taking that path and it keeps on going the same way, right? And so you're deepening that. And so that path is deeper and deeper. And so it's going to be harder for you to not take that path. So what I teach in, psychology is that I was like, what we're going to do is you're going into a forest, right? And when you're in that forest, there's a nice path there. And it seems like that is the path, right, to take. And I'm saying, nope, we are going to go through the trees and the bushes.
Yes.
And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. That's going to be hard. Yes, you're right. But the more we do that and we don't go down the other path, that path, right, is slowly going to build weeds and trees. And the one that we're on, right, is going to get deeper and deeper.
Right.
And so that's really a lot what psychology, right, a CBT, DBT, what we try to teach, right, is to really think in a different way. And what we're trying to do is create different neural pathways.
100%, because like they say, the human body, like you're going to pick the known pain, right?
Absolutely.
The unknown pain, you don't know how hard it's going to be truly, but it's unknown, so it's scary. Like, fuck that. Like, I know what this pain is.
Right.
I'm comfortable in this
Right.
pain. This is the pain I'm going to take. But that's like, self-talk is fucking huge.
Yes.
Huge, because you can always be super hard on yourself. Like, I'm not good enough. Like, I can't do this. I can't do that. Well, guess what you're doing? You're basically just telling yourself what's going to happen and transpire.
Yeah.
Where if you can flip the script and be like, I can do this. Like, I hit a bump in the road, but I'm going to fucking try again tomorrow. I'm going to try again tomorrow. And I remember you telling me that story about the path through the woods. And I'm like, well, then fuck this shit, because like I'm getting 2 axes and we're going to cut down all these fucking trees. I'm done with this shit.
Exactly.
Because it's
Like, I'm getting a saw.
Yeah.
I'm getting everything.
Fuck,
a sledgehammer. I'm getting everything.
But it's true. And then once you start to make that path and you look behind you, you're like, holy shit, like look how far
Right.
I have come.
Yes.
And
Yep.
that goes with like physical fitness. Like after my shooting, like, everything hurt, like my body hurt, like like I was deteriorated. And putting in the work and not just taking that path that I've been taking of like, I'll just go to PT, I'll go to OT, I'll eat, and I'll lay on the couch. Or you can go to the gym, work out, keep your
Right.
body physically fit. And then as you can start to see, you're building that path, that new path, that uncomfortable starts to become comfortable.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing is that, in the very beginning, it is difficult.
Right.
And it's not an easy way, right? Just like losing weight or doing anything that's really of, greatness is that usually it's hard.
Exactly. When
Yeah.
you get a new job, what do? You learn the job.
Right.
If you want to become a doctor, you want to become a nurse, you want to become a lawyer,
Right.
you got to put the work in.
Yep. Absolutely.
So what's any different than your mental health?
Right. And that's why, I wanted to come on is, to again, just kind of talk about it is okay to get mental health help, right?
Right.
This is a challenge. And just like you're talking about is that you have to go, right, and learn a new job, learn a new skill. You have to do the same thing with your brain. And it's not easy because sometimes you don't know that's what I'm doing, right? Bringing that insight into, well, it sounds like you were having a fight or flight moment. And you're like, oh, I was, right? And so it's being able to have that reflection and to know this is what your pattern is and how do we then change that?
Right. And let your ego go. Let the fear go of what people think about you. It doesn't fucking matter because just like you go to the gym to make your body healthy, you're going to a therapist to make your mind healthy.
Right.
We're not born with these tricks of the trade.
No.
You don't learn this in grade school. I missed 7th grade, so I missed mental health. It doesn't really fucking work. Should they teach it? 1,000%.
Absolutely.
This should be a skill set that everyone should learn. But
Yes.
if you don't have the skills to take care of your own mental health, like everything around you is going to deteriorate.
Right.
And just like we talked about, like law enforcement, like, it's like, hell, hey, like that person's dead. You're like, oh, fuck. Like, I didn't mean to be disrespectful in any way. You just become detached and that becomes your new normal.
Right.
Well, guess what? That's not fucking normal.
Right. Exactly. Probably even the conversation we're having, right? Like if, somebody's a civilian listening, they might be shocked by some of the things that we say
Right.
or your whole program. But for us, it's like, oh, this is kind of normal. It doesn't seem like such a big deal.
It's another day at the office.
Right. Exactly. And, if I talk to any other officer or, firefighter, I'm going to hear, same kinds of stories, right?
The same thing.
And exactly what you're saying is it just starts to seem so normal. And I think what you're talking about is like all of us have some coping strategies, right? But usually when you have these types of traumas, these types of things, we don't have coping strategies for that because we've never experienced that before.
No.
Getting shot, almost dying, right? Losing, your best friend and, partner, right? How many times do people go through that in life, right?
Right.
That's when you do need to go for some extra help because you're like, I don't know what even coping skills do I need for this, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And for you guys that don't know, Dr. Steiner, she was with me right after my shooting. Like, I think I was in the hospital for like 5 days. And then my chief called you and you came and you had a session with my wife and I in the hospital room right then and there.
Yes.
And then and you didn't even leave like you before we scheduled the next visit. And you're like, hey, listen, like I'll see you next week. And then we'll go from there. And then it just was that relationship ever since. And there was never a time where I'm like, I'm not going to do this. It was already set up. It's done. Like I need to go. And it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me because God knows where I would have been if I didn't go see you right off the rip.
Right. And again, usually what I do in those situations is I give psychoeducation. This is what likely is going to happen or you might experience. And if you do, that's really normal. Even though that's not normal, right?
Right.
Because trauma is not normal. And we have to, as first responders, understand that. And what I also hear from first responders is like, oh, I'm not affected by that. But then I ask, like, has anybody told you that you're not very sensitive? Oh, yeah, all the time. And I'm like, so it does impact you, right? Because now you can't tap into your emotions, right? You can't. And so often I hear that is, oh, the job didn't change me. Or I'm not any different. I don't take it home, I leave it there. And I'm like, no, you don't, because where are you sitting at the restaurant, right? What are you doing at church? Looking at the, entrances and exits, right? How many times you go in, you know where everything is, right?
1,000%.
Yeah. I was like, no, it comes with you.
1,000%. But then too, it's like so we talk, if someone's looking on the outside in and you hear two officers talking or an officer and a paramedic talking and they're joking and something traumatic happened, that's another way for us to cope. Like we like dark humor is like the bread and butter.
Yes.
To get through these calls.
Absolutely. And to be honest, humor is a higher level coping strategy. So it's actually effective and helpful because exactly what you said is this is so horrible and tragic. Either we can sit here and cry and not be able to do our job, or we can try to make a joke of it and then just do the best that we can, right? And then that's how you get through it, right? Because if I sat and personally, like I thought, oh my God, my sergeant almost killed me. How do you go back to work?
Don't go back to fucking work.
Exactly. You're like, hey, there's people at my office that are killing, almost killing me.
Right.
We made a joke about it, and I was like, you need to go to the, range a little bit more.
Get your fucking eyes checked, old man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and hearing too, because we called it out,
But it's true because, like, if you worked at Jewel and you're a bagger and the cashier's like, discharge their firearm next to your face, you're probably not fucking going back to work.
Exactly. You're like, I don't like work a lot, because people try to kill me there.
It's cost me my fucking life.
Yeah.
So,
but that's the whole thing, even being a first responder is, and what I talk about too is that, most of us say like, oh, I don't feel any different. But it's like, okay, when you put on that bulletproof vest and you put on that gun belt, or if you're a firefighter and you put on all, the turnout gear, you're not going, oh, this is really nice and cuddly for my daughter, right?
Right.
Or, you're like, I got to get ready and prepared for the, like,
What's happening?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that, again, there's so many physiological things that are happening. And remember, we're still animals. And it's easy to get into that animal brain. Why am I putting on a bulletproof vest?
Right.
The only reason is because if I might get shot, right?
Right.
It's not because it, makes it nice in the summertime, right, to wear.
I love sweating my ass off. So
I
I'm
love
throwing
it.
this bulletproof vest.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the only time I did maybe enjoy it a little bit more is in the winter. It
Like
took
a
you
day like today.
Exactly, like today. Yeah.
When it's like -30 out.
keeps you a little bit warmer.
A
And you're
little
like,
bit.
yeah, snuggle.
Right. And then you're in that weird, if you are nights, then you're in that weird temperature where it's like it's too cold to have your window open, but then
Yes.
inside your squat's too hot and you start to fall asleep and you have to
Yes.
roll down the window. Yeah.
Yeah, or you don't want to, like go in a real hot car to a real cold outside because then it takes you so long. So then you don't have it very warm in your squad car.
Then your
like,
windows start fogging up.
Yes, and then you're like, oh God, this is. I've been in cold all week.
Yeah. All fucking week. Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the beauty of policing in the summer or in the winter.
Yeah.
In the winter. Summer, you're just sweating your ass off.
Yes, exactly. I think that people don't understand either, like how much physically, usually all the gear, especially for a police officer,
Right.
is like anywhere from 25 to 40 pounds, usually, just an average
On your hips.
on your hips, right? And like when I was, policing, I was like 130 pounds. And when I would have all my gear on, it was 35 pounds. That's a lot to carry.
Yeah.
You
Now
know?
run. Now
Yeah.
run with that.
And
Now
now
try
run
to
with
fight
it.
somebody with that or try to
Right.
go upstairs with that. Like,
Exactly. And I think people just don't understand how much physically, and that's why I, talk to officers too, because they'll say like, nothing even happened tonight, but I'm so tired. Why is that? Because physically, right, you're putting 35, 40 pounds on you, but then you're also waiting and anticipating, I might have a call.
Right.
There might be something that happens. Is that person safe or not safe, right? We used to say on midnights, like anybody that's out after 12, they're doing something wrong. It's just a matter of how much.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
Or if you're pulling a traffic stop and you have to walk up to the car. Yeah, it could be a routine traffic stop, but it still spikes your adrenaline, still fucks with your nervous system.
Absolutely.
And when you fuck with your nervous system like that, it takes it out of you.
Absolutely. It's exhausting. And so I tell people, I was like, if let's say you did go to church and there was a shooting, when you came home, what would you want to do? And I was like, do you think you would want to, like have a nice, conversation and talk about, the weather? You want to make a nice dinner, right? You're going to be freaking out. And that's why, again, sometimes these first responders come home and they're like, I just need some time,
Right.
I just need to zone out. I need to whatever is because I'm like, their body just went through something, even though technically maybe they didn't, but their body is still living it and going through it.
1,000%. Now we talked about breath work and getting the and splashing cold water, controlling the vagus nerve. Now, what is another technique? I think we've talked about it before, and I've used it, and it's looking for something that's like 2 feet in front of you.
Yeah, the 5, 4,
focusing.
3, 2,
That's
1
it.
technique. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is the more you can get focused on something that's in the present, right? Like looking at a pen or, looking at a cup, right? And trying to name 5 things that you can see on it. Because most of the time, like if we look at something, we're like, oh, it's a brown table, a blue car.
You don't even think about it. It's a glance and off.
Right, exactly. But usually there's much more detail. There's usually some white, there's some silver, there's, a different color of
Or
something.
texture, right?
And exactly. And so you do 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can touch and feel, and you name them all. 3 things, that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. And so when you go through all of that, usually you're going to be more present in the here and now. And usually where anxiety lives is in the past or in the future, right?
Right.
I am going to get attacked because I was attacked before. But if you're in the present, usually that's going to calm you down more. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique is very helpful. And what's cool is that it often is good for kids, You know,
Right.
you can do it with, you know, your family. It's kind of like I Spy almost.
Right,
you know,
right,
you can
right.
make it into a game, but it really is helpful. But what I find is that if people don't make it more detailed, right? If they just go, okay, in the room there's a blue flag and, you know, a hat, you know, that's not it. I'm talking about details,
Right.
right? Details. And really getting into that, you're going to get present in the here and now, and you're going to be more aware of what's happening with you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about that as well, because there's so many people out there who like disassociating is basically like a majority of their life now.
Yes.
And as we keep getting older and older and older, it's like one of ways to compensate or to cope with what's going on in life. I think it's a good practice to start maybe once a day as well, because
Yes.
it helps you stay in the presence.
Yes.
Right. And there's, you know, we spend so much time focused on the past and focused on the future that like a lot of us don't like focus on the present, what's going on now. And that's why your weeks are flying by. That's why your
Right.
days are flying by. And it's a blink and your kid's already 7, your kid's 8, or your kid's 13 or
Right.
16.
Yes.
And you let everything pass you because you're always too hyper focused and detaching from reality. It's like, take the time to be present. Take the time to have that legit conversation with your wife or your son or your daughter and be in that moment with them. Put your phone down, because it's too easy just to pick up your phone and scroll.
Yes.
Because
yes.
how many times, like, I can say I've doom scrolled numerous times where it's
Yes.
like, you know, I checked this for the podcast, and the next thing you know, like, I'm on there for 35 minutes and I literally accomplished nothing.
Yeah, it is so hard in this day and age, especially with computers and everything coming at us. You know, it's so easy to doom scroll or watch TV and Netflix and all of these
Right.
kinds of things. But the more we are present, the happier we are. Research shows us that. And also one is that usually, like, why do people go on roller coasters? Because it's fun.
Right.
And you're on a roller coaster because you're present, right? You're not going to be going down 90 miles an hour and be thinking like, oh, I really need to, break up with that boyfriend, right? You're not going to be thinking about too much other than just like,
Right.
right? And, I think that, again, it's, trying to get into the present. And we also know that, when we talk to elderly people or people who are dying, they never go, gosh, I wish I would have doom scrolled a little bit more. I wish I would have watched all the seasons of this. I wish I would have worked more, right? Those are
Right.
not the things. They say, I wish I would have been more present for my family.
It's true. Like,
Yeah.
take a second and think about what you've done the past day. What was yesterday like? What was the majority of this morning like? What did you do? Did you go to the gym, or did you wake up and grab your phone? Did you wake up and grab your phone, and then how long were you on your phone for?
Right.
And then what did you look at? What did you accomplish? So once you kind of look at it in that perspective, like, or I even challenge you to go on your phone, and if you have an iPhone, I'm sure Samsung does the same thing, or Android, it tells you what app you're on, how much time you spent on it. And if that doesn't put things in perspective for you, because like when you are doom scrolling, it's like that instant dopamine dump, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what's so hard about a lot of these things. And even overeating, there's so much of that dopamine coming back, gambling, all of those things. It's so hard. We're predisposed to, oh, that feels good. Let's keep doing more of it. And that's why being mindful and more present, you're aware that that's happening, and then you can make a choice, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, what is that doing to your brain? It has to be causing havoc.
Oh, absolutely.
And then things that used to give you happiness or enjoyment, you're not getting anymore because you already have that cheap dopamine dump with social media or YouTube or whatever you're doing. And I think I saw a study, and I didn't confirm if it's true or not, so don't quote me, but they're saying that now that's linked to dementia, like of adults as they're becoming in their 30s or 40s and 50s.
Yes, because there's not really stimulation. Like
No.
a lot of people think, oh, playing a video game is a lot of stimulation and, decision making and things like that. But it's not. It's actually tapping into the limbic system, fight, flight, or freeze. I'm going to shoot you, you shoot me. I'm going to hide here. It is not, high order problem solving at all. Dogs can do that, right? And so if a dog could actually do what you're doing, yes, they are not going to hit the controllers, but we still, have some more abilities, but that isn't very, amazing for your brain. And so if you're not using something, and if you're not using your frontal lobe, it's going to go into atrophy, just like your muscles or anything else. So if you're not stimulating it, it's going to start to go away. So it's not surprising at all that that's happening.
Right. Yeah. And what I found that helped me was just going outside.
Yeah.
And it sucks now because it's so fucking cold.
It is cold.
So, but like when it was warmer, even like fall, and it was around like 50 degrees, I would still like put a sweatshirt on and go out, lay in my hammock, watch the sun go down, and then watch like the fireflies come out, or then you watch the sun, like the stars start to come out, and you just play some music, and you're in nature. I think being in nature is extremely beneficial for people.
Absolutely. There's a study that came out that said just being by a body of water decreases your anxiety by 20%. There's energy with the earth, and it's positive energy. And so actually there's another, study that shows like if you're flying, right, and you get air sickness or, you're not feeling good, take off your shoes, get your toes in the grass, right? Feel the energy, and you're going to feel a lot better
Grounding.
quicker. Yeah, because you're grounding.
Yep.
And exactly what you're talking about, like seeing the fireflies, all those things. What are you doing? Being present.
Being present.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's so much easier to do that in nature because nature is actually really interesting and fun and exciting,
Exactly.
It is.
Because like when's the last time like you laid in the grass? Like I did this last year. I went outside, I took my shoes off, and I laid in the grass, and it was a windy day. But when was the last time you actually looked at the trees, and as the branches are blowing, the leaves are blowing, you looked around, the birds are flying? We don't really do that nowadays.
Right.
Everyone's too busy with, I got to work. I have to jump on social media, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. Like, be in nature.
Yeah.
Ground yourself. It helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think that what I encourage is actually to schedule that.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's hard to think, oh yeah, I should do that. Or yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. Like people listening to the podcast, that sounds like a great idea. I'm going to do that next weekend. No, put it in your phone.
Yes.
Put a time in there and say, this is when I'm going to do it, because that's when you're going to do it.
Yeah. But words are powerful. Just like self-talk is powerful.
Yes.
Words are powerful. And it's the same thing. I'm going to do this.
Yes.
I have something next to my bed and says the podcast will be successful. And I have it laying right next to my bed. So every morning when I wake up, that's the first thing I see. And I don't think I've ever been so committed to something besides like law enforcement to something than the podcast.
Yeah.
Because it brings me joy, and it helps people that, who are going through similar situations or something different, but can resonate with what's being said.
Right.
So,
right. And, and again, coming back to the biology, and is that when you say something to yourself, your brain doesn't know that that's not true. And so if you continue to say it, I'm a loser, I'm not worthy, your body believes it. The other thing is that if you say, I can't do this, you're putting yourself in fight or flight, because the body then goes, oh no, I can't do this, right? Now I'm in danger. And so even softening it and saying, this might be hard, but I can try, right, is hugely different than saying I can't do it.
Do hard things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do hard things. Don't be afraid to fail. What's the worst case scenario? What's going to happen? Like if you want to put up a wall in your basement, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Go on Google. Yeah. Ask ChatGPT. AI is fucking phenomenal.
Right.
It's going to tell you the spacing. You need 16 inches between each frame, like between each 2x4. You need a header. You need a foot. You need all those things. Look it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Learn something.
Yeah.
I think, especially now that we're living longer too, is that I think that as we get older, we feel like, I'm just going to do the same old, right? Take that same path. However, that's not the best path. And so by learning new things and challenging yourself, and especially now, like you're talking about, it's going on Chat, GPT, AI, there's so much there that can tell you how to do something and to do something new. Yeah.
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 Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
All right.
We went over a bunch of tricks of the trade. Another thing that was very important to me and helped me out was meditation.
Yes.
And I love to meditate. I haven't been doing it recently because of just being busy, but when I do, I can definitely tell like a difference with my nervous system, with my cognitive abilities, and then also like word recall as well. I feel sharper. I feel everything feels like cleaner when I do meditate. And one of my favorite things to do was actually to go outside, take my shoes off, ground in the grass, and then meditate.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on meditation?
I think meditation is so good. I think that there's many different ways that people can do it. Sometimes there's guided imagery where you listen to somebody speak. Sometimes it's, having a mantra word, or even humming or chanting. Sometimes it's about being just very quiet. So whatever works for you. is important, but meditation is absolutely something that's very beneficial. And then also just being aware, right, of your breath and where you are, being present again is
Right.
what meditation does. And so we're coming back to the same, skill really is just being present.
1,000%. Because I think there's something beneficial about when you're literally just focused on breath. Like you can
Yes.
feel like feeling your air coming in and out of your body. And then when you get to become a little bit more proficient at meditation, you start to kind of slip into like a transcendental state, like when you
Yes.
feel like you're dreaming.
Yes.
And I've sat in the chair that you're sitting in, and I actually, my whole body felt like I was asleep,
Yeah.
but like I could hear everything.
Yeah.
And if I'm outside, I can kind of go into that transcendental state. Like I can hear my neighbor's kids playing 3 or 4 houses down, and I live on acre lots, so like
Yeah.
that's a pretty far distance, but
Right.
I can hear their conversation. It's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah. Well, you're actually changing the brain waves, right? You're
Right.
getting into alpha and theta waves. And so by relaxing and allowing yourself, right, to be more present, you are going to be able to hear more things, right?
Right.
And just, being more aware of everything. And then that also relaxes that limbic system. And the more the limbic system relaxes, the more you're going to feel relaxed and focused. And that's why you can concentrate and,
Right.
do better. And it stays with you. And exactly what you said is that practicing it, the more you do it, the easier it gets to get into that state. Right. One of the things that we do with EMDR is finding a quote safe place or a
Right.
calm place for you. And you visualize whatever makes you feel safe and happy and good. And, you get into the senses. And that's another way that you can, go from that very scary, bad place in your mind to a very good place. And it can
Right.
be imaginal, it can be real, it can be whatever. Or I've had people like, it's the sea, but I hate seagulls. I'm like, okay, there's no
There's no
seagulls here,
seagulls, right.
just whatever makes it, wonderful for you. And that's what's so great about humans, right? Is we have this creative brain. We can
Right.
think and, design and create so many different things.
Oh, 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I actually experienced that with you as well, where mine was on the beach. And I remember you're like, all right, now think about your toes in the sand. And then you hear the waves crashing. And then you actually, when you put yourself into it, and thing too is like, you have to buy into it.
Yes.
Right. You can't be like, oh, this is fucking stupid.
Right.
Like, this is dumb. Like, all right, doc, I'm here. I'm sitting in the
Right.
beach. You're not going to get fucking anything out of
No.
it with that type of attitude. You actually
Yes.
kind of have to buy into it. You have to
Yes.
sit there, actually feel your body relaxing, and then actually picture yourself in the sand. Everyone can picture themselves in the sand. We've all been to the beach.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that again, that's the thing and we're talking about like with the path, right? The
Yeah.
path is like, oh, that's nice and open. Okay. I'm at the beach. No. We're going to take this other one. And I really want you to be at the beach.
Yeah.
I want you to notice each sand particle. I want you to notice what color the sand is, right?
Really picture it.
Yeah, exactly. And the more you get into the details, the more you're present, the more you think about, that beach that maybe you were at or that you create, the more relaxed the body's going to get. The
Yeah.
more that limbic system shuts down and the happier you're going to be.
It's just like Happy Gilmore. Go to your happy place.
Exactly.
But it does work,
works.
you guys, and like practice it. Like go if you have a therapist and they offer it, try it out.
Yeah.
And experience it, or go see Dr. Steiner at her clinic and experience it. If it works, it works. But like see the difference between like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks as you progress and as you practice and as you do, and you're building that road through the forest, right? Because it's something difficult to do. Because how hard is it for some people to sit and turn off their brain?
Right. I usually tell people, I was like, you have to try any coping strategy at least 3 times because the
Yes.
first time you're just trying to figure out how does this work. The second time you're like, oh, okay, maybe.
clunky.
Exactly. And then the third time is really when you're maybe using the skill.
Yes.
Right. And I also talk to people too about like, a police belt, right? A gun is really important. So is a taser. But if I go to a traffic stop and it's an old lady, and she, probably won't need either one of those.
Right.
Does that mean that they're not good tools to have?
Right.
It still is important because you never know, right?
Exactly.
And so I always talk to people about it's better to have lots of coping strategies
right.
and try them and see if it works. And maybe it does this time, but maybe not next time. But it doesn't mean that it'll never work again, right?
Right.
And the same thing, right? I can tase somebody. It may not work. doesn't mean I throw the taser out. You know, it just means, okay, in that situation, it didn't work, but in what other situations might it work?
Yeah.
So I think what we do also at our center, right, is we try to, you know, when we're giving advice or giving examples, we try to make it very, you know, personal to the career so it makes more sense, right?
1,000%.
Because exactly what you said, you have to be able to buy into it.
Right.
You know, and I think because, you know, I was a police officer, right, I always look for evidence-based treatment. So
100%, right.
I always tell everybody, you know, okay, this actually shows evidence and
Yes.
this is what, you know, it is. But it is hard sometimes to go, so just breathing or just thinking about, you know, being at the beach is going to help me with my anxiety
Right.
or depression. Yeah, it actually does.
Yeah. Put your ego to
Yeah.
the side. Like, take things, you know, at face value. What does it look like? Don't judge the book by its cover, right? Like, open the pages, see what it's all about. Because I
Right.
guarantee, like, when you can start controlling your nervous system and actually start bringing your nervous system down, there's like a peace about you. Like, and you can
Yes.
start experiencing love or life through love instead of anxiety or anger and fear. Because a lot of times, like, when you are in fight or flight, you're talking from fear, you're talking from anxiety, and it's not who you truly are as a person.
Right.
And I find with meditation, I'm able to connect with myself truly of who I am.
Right.
But it's, again, too, it's how often do you work on it?
Right.
And if you let it slip, it's a skill, and it will also fade.
It goes away. And again, at the same time, you know, it's not like, oh, I do a deep breathing exercise, I no longer have depression. But it's, again, I'm being able to manage it and control it, right? Just like our cars. We're like, oh, I need to put some more gas in it, or I need oil, right? But there still could go something wrong with the car. It doesn't mean, oh, throw out the whole car.
Right.
You know, so it's like, you know, you got to do some things, and you got to, you know, keep you know, putting things into it to get some things out of it.
Right, because all it was your battery's dead because you left the light on.
Yep.
Charge your battery.
Exactly.
That
exactly.
you need a good night's sleep.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So that's another thing too, is it's like your sleep is also a big thing for your mental health and nervous system as well.
Absolutely.
If you're burning the candle at both ends and you're not, you know, recovering properly, your body's not going to respond the same.
Right. Research shows that 60% of first responders have sleep issues and
No.
30% have a sleep disorder. And we also know, which was surprising to me, is that sleep, the lack of sleep, actually increases the chance of suicide. And so when we're looking at, right, when I was in school and I'm like seeing all these things, I'm like, God, we just, you know, as, you know, please, you know, I'm like, hit that one, that one, that one. You
We
know?
get them all.
Exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm surprised any of us are alive, right?
Right, never make it out of this career alive.
Exactly. But I think it's really important, you know,
Yeah.
to be noticing those things and prioritizing sleep and recognizing, no, I do need to put some effort and time into that and, you know, try to regulate it as best as I can. And we talk about sleep hygiene, you know, many people, you know, do this in first responder world, but having, you know, very black, very dark, having the temperature lower at least 6 to 7 degrees, because again, even if you work shift work, usually at nighttime it goes down lower. So
Right.
you're trying to create all of those things that are natural there, not looking at social media or
Right.
something before
The
going to
blue
bed.
screen, yeah.
Yeah, not eating, not drinking before bed. Yes, you know, having a glass of wine might make you tired, but unfortunately, it probably will wake you up to have to go to the bathroom.
Right.
It also usually shows that you don't get as much REM sleep, which is the sleep that actually makes you feel more, you know, rested. So there's a lot of things that sometimes, you know, we think, you know, oh, that works for me, but it actually is, you know, kind of working the opposite against
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Make sure you're getting that 7 to 8 hours. I mean, you probably truly need 8. But like also too, like, what's your ritual before going to bed? Like, are
Right.
you watching TV? Are you watching the news? Are you on your phone scrolling? Because that blue light has an effect on your body.
Right.
Turn off the phone. Turn off the TV. Open up a book. Work on a
Yes.
project. Solve
Yeah.
a puzzle. Like, there's so many different things you could be doing that, you know, doesn't affect with your REM sleep and all that stuff. There's also something they said about like watching the sunset and watching the sunrise for
Yes.
the circadian rhythm of your
Yep.
body.
Yep.
So
Even just being outside a half hour a day
yes.
in the sunlight, no matter what shift you work, helps the circadian rhythm understand. And so that is really important as well. So getting outside, being outside. I understand right now, you know, it is very cold out there, but,
Right.
you know, even honestly today when I, you know, got up and I walked outside, it was like whoosh. And I was like very present and I like
Yeah.
that. Right. And I felt that. And I was like, wow, I really feel my cheeks, right? Being
Yes.
colder. And then it took me a while in the car. And I was just trying to be present with that. Right.
Exactly.
And it's like, this is nice. What a neat thing, right? That, the weather can change us so much in our biology and everything, so I was getting kind of mystified in that, right?
Right.
And it's just like, oh, this is neat.
But it kind of brings you back to the mindset of like when you were a kid, right? Because you're like,
Yeah.
wait, mom, where are we going today? And
Yeah.
like everything to you is new. Everything
Right.
to you is fresh.
Yep.
And as you get older, you become jaded and you're just like,
Right.
I don't want to fucking go here. I don't want to go
Yeah.
to the zoo. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But as a kid, you're like, I want to go to the fucking zoo.
Right.
I want
It's
to
like,
see a
what's
zebra.
that? What's that like? Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right. So,
Yeah, I
but that
think-
goes back to being present.
Yeah, I think there's so much that we can learn from children, right? Because
Oh,
they
God,
get so
yeah.
excited. They're so much more present. And that's why, right, they get frustrated. Like, they're playing with Legos and you're like, we're going to go to the zoo. And they're like, I want to play with Legos, right? Because it's like so fun and exciting.
Oh, yeah.
But then when you take them to the zoo, they're like, this is great. And
This
I
is
don't
the
want to
best.
leave,
Yeah.
right? And so, but there's so much that you can take from, watching children or watching your own children, right?
Right.
Being present.
Yeah. And that just goes back to
so important.
stop focusing so much on the past and so much on the future. Let tomorrow happen tomorrow. Let today happen today.
Right.
Yes, I understand that. Okay, make sure you schedule your bills or schedule your appointments
Yes,
or
of
do what
course.
you have to do. Absolutely. Be
Yeah.
responsible. But also make sure you're taking the time to be present. Make sure you're
Right.
taking the time to enjoy the day. Like you have a conversation with your buddy or your coworker and you do enjoy their conversation. Stay present. Don't be thinking about something else.
Right.
Because like I find myself doing that all the time. Like where I'm having a conversation with someone, they're talking, I'm not listening, I'm just nodding my head, but
Right.
I'm also thinking of like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this.
Right. I read I listened to a podcast recently that this guy talked about, like, in 100 years, he was like, nobody's really going to know you. Somebody else is going to be in your house,
Right.
like in it. And, you're really not going to be right as important to anybody.
Right.
And if you think about it, like people, like if you think back to your great grandparent, do you know anything about them? Most of us don't, and
Bare minimum, yeah.
exactly. And do they make much of an impact on what you're doing today or how you're living? And it's not to say, well, you're not important, but it's to say, why are you worrying so much? Is that it's like, ultimately, right, we do end up all dying, right? So enjoy your time here.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly worrying about like, what are other people going to think, or, I'm not good enough. It's just like, we have one special life,
That's it.
take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Be excited for the day.
But we get caught up in all the bullshit that doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
And that it's sad. And you let it take over your life, then that's the kind of life you live then. You're
Right.
not living from a place of experience. You're living just, again, detached.
Right.
You're a zombie. You're just going through the motions.
Right.
And that's not a life to live.
It is not. I mean, one of the things that we do at our center is after a critical incident, sometimes we'll do a group debrief.
Right.
And when I go to those, right, sometimes like officers in the very beginning, are like, do we really need this? We just go through this all the time, and sometimes, while we're going through it and then they start to become present, then they actually realize, oh, wow, I was impacted by that. Oh, wow, that did bother me. Oh, wow,
Right.
I did, right, go home and hug my children and woke them up at 2 a.m, right? And then they realize all of those things. So those debriefs can be so important because, again, it helps them to get present and to be aware of actually what happened. Because,
Right.
again, you're on that, mode of just like, I'm just going through the motions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's extremely beneficial too, because like if someone's on the fence of, do I need to go see like a therapist or not? Right. And then something like you guys offer, I love that you guys offer it because I benefited from it we had that bank shooting back, this is like early 2020s,
Yeah.
probably 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
You guys came in and I thought it was beneficial. I'm like, fuck, this is cool. Like, I
Yeah.
like this. And then you guys came out again for my shooting, but I think you guys had multiple rounds because
Yes.
it's not just the police department that was affected. It's all the cops that were there.
Right.
It's all the cops that weren't there.
Yes.
It's all the staff,
Right.
the civilian staff that were there because I build relationships with everybody in that police department.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, everybody's impacted. And the thing is that, especially like you're talking about, is for the people that weren't there, right? Some of the trauma that happens is that I didn't do anything. I
Right.
wasn't able to help out, right? And you can feel that guilt. Or maybe you took off that day, right? And you're like, if I was there, it would have changed things, right?
Right.
And we, tell each other all these negative, self-talk. And so everybody's impacted by trauma. And I think that what I love about the group debriefs is sometimes when you do have like dispatch or fire or, the officers, the detectives, all those people in the same room, you realize, oh, wow, we've all been affected by this.
Right.
And it's not just that one individual that was on scene or two. It's like everybody. And I think that that's the other thing that most first responders don't realize is that just because you didn't go to the call doesn't mean that you weren't impacted by that call.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
Because there is this, like secondhand secondhand trauma, PTSD, like that does happen.
Secondary trauma. Yes.
Secondary trauma does happen and does affect people.
Yes.
It does.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was going to bring up something and it slipped my mind. Ah, shit. I lost it. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, I think I was just thinking beyond the dispatch, right? Is that you're talking about, there is something that happens. Yes, the dispatch comes out and then all these other people are affected, right?
100%.
And we need to really understand that. And I think that our world is not very understanding of how trauma affects us and what all occurs and how we change our mindset. Recently I was in Australia and the Bondi mass shooting happened. And when I was there, Australians talked about we don't experience this. We don't have guns. We're not like United States.
Right.
And to be honest, when that happened, I was kind of like, of course that's horrible. But I also I am kind of used to it, right? We do hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All the time.
Yeah. So I was surprised that it was on the news every night and they kept talking about how uncommon it was. And then also how they talked about that there was a gentleman that did try to disarm one of them. And he did get to do that. He was shot. But I was surprised because he got the weapon and I was like, why didn't he shoot him?
Probably didn't know how to operate it.
Right. But they say in Australia that they can't defend themselves.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can't use lethal force. Even if somebody comes into your house, that is not legal. Now, the people there told me in this case, they probably wouldn't have charged him, but technically to the law, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to let law enforcement do that.
Could you imagine that happening in Chicago?
No.
That'd be fucking insane.
Yeah.
If I was, there'd be no way because then I'd feel responsible if I took the gun away from him and then his partner started shooting other people.
Right. Yes.
And I did nothing to do anything about it. And I was already shot.
Right. But I was just thinking, I was like, that's how they're being taught. That's what their, culture is. And so that's what I'm saying is it was so interesting to be there and they thought very differently about it and how we think about things. Right. And this is where, again, the way you think about things make you feel a certain way, right? And then act a certain way. And so those are important things to understand. And one of the reasons why I like to sometimes do international travel is just because of those cultural experiences and seeing how different other people are, but also how similar they are, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of say the same thing about today's climate with the political parties and how this party sees things this way and this party sees things this way. And that you sometimes I look at the news and I feel like there's such a huge disconnect between the two. Yes. You're like, where's this coming in at? Where's the disconnect coming in? Where's the misinformation coming in? And then you just look at social media and you look at media and you look at all these things that people are, consuming to get their information from. All right, well, what are you doing to find out what's real, what's not real?
Right.
Right? Are you just believing what's told at face value, or are you doing your due diligence and be like, okay, you say this happened, what's the evidence? And you start to, again, jump on Google, jump on ChatGPT. It's going to tell you the information.
Right. Well, and I think especially with politics and, a lot of people do, look at police shootings and things like that.
Right.
I really encourage people, make sure you understand what the law is.
Exactly.
And understand what, is actually what is acceptable. And again, if you don't like that law, you might want to change it. But if you're fighting for something that is actually, lawful, that isn't helpful.
No.
And so again, it's just also, looking at both sides. We used to do something called critical thinking, where we would take a topic and each of us would take a side and we'd try to prove our point.
Right.
And then everybody at the end would decide which point do they, take. And now it seems a little bit more like we're only going to take this side and we're only going to listen to this side and we're going to not even consider the other side.
Right. Where's the conversation? There's no conversation anymore
Right.
where it's like one party can have a conversation with another party and agree to disagree, and that's fine.
Right.
But I feel like there's such a gap and there's so much hate going on where it's like there's no communication. There's no like, oh, I see your point here, but do you see my point? There's none of that.
Right, exactly. And that also gets back to, right, like feeling that fear response, right?
Right.
Is because it's the always and never. And what I am seeing, right, is that in our culture, especially now, is that there is so much more dichotomous, right? All people are this way, all right, political parties are that way.
Right.
And so it's just like, whoa, we're really going to a place that's just not healthy.
No. And it goes back to the whole, like, you're branding all one job or all one race with one brand. And that's not fair whatsoever because we all know that not to be the case.
Right. Exactly.
Like all white men are this or all black men are this or all Hispanic men are you're generalizing and that's not fair.
Exactly.
But again, why do I keep I'm having a day over here.
That's okay.
I'm usually pretty spot on with it. What are some things that are coming up for First Responders Wellness that you guys have that are exciting and new? Anything that's coming up or?
Yeah, actually we are, trying to really work on these annual wellness visits for police and fire departments. And what we're trying to do is ensure that we're reaching out to the departments, asking a little bit more like, hey, what has happened over this last year that maybe we should be aware of? And to really, develop a little bit more of a relationship with them to understand what's going on. What are the problems in the agency so we can help out a little bit more. We have a newsletter as well that's quarterly that we're doing. We also have a suicide prevention seminar coming up that we're going to be involved in.
Oh, nice. Where's it at?
In Drury Lane.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then we do have, the spouses support group as well as an addictions group. So, and then we're just, keep on growing the practice. Again, we have an office in Chicago, Lincolnshire, and Lombard, and then telehealth. So we have a lot of different ways that people could potentially come and see us.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys also offer group therapy
Yes.
for first responders as well. I'm a part of that group. It's phenomenal. Bunch of great people in there. Going through life and figuring it out. And it's definitely a great atmosphere to be around, a very supportive atmosphere to be around. Everyone's very friendly. Everyone's very helpful. And everyone gives their 2 cents.
Yep.
And it's a good community to be around. And it's nice to have a group of people who've been through similar situations that you have and can relate.
Yeah.
So because there's a lot of times too, it's just like you feel like you're the only one that feels this way.
Right.
Because it's not something you talk about.
Right. Exactly. Well, and also because if you ask an average officer, hey, did you have a nightmare about your gun not working? You're like, yeah. So you're not going to think it's weird, right? And you're not going to think it's a problem. But then if you're having that nightmare every night, that is a problem.
That is a problem.
But the whole reason why we develop groups, and I know usually every single first time, I'm not going to a group, right?
Right.
But when people finally get in them, they're like, oh my God, I didn't realize I'm not the only one, right? They're going through, how did they know that? I've actually had people say, like, did you set him up to say that?
Yeah.
Like, I can't make people say things.
It's true because I was very hesitant. I'm like, I don't think I want it. Like, no one wants to hear me fucking talk, right? And then I finally did it, and I was like, what the fuck? I was missing out on so much because like there's things in there too that you talk about because like I was going through a medical discharge at the time, and there's a lot of information that I didn't know. So like you get the inside of it, like what someone has already been through. Because it's like, how many cops do you know who've been medically discharged?
Right.
Not very many.
Not many. Yeah.
So, because like you always ask, I asked my sergeant, I'm like, hey, what do I do here? He's like, I don't fucking know. Like,
right. And yeah, even most departments don't know what to do and how to do it. And so we have such a unique group, that can be together and to support each other and to share things. And I know still everybody in there feels like, my issue isn't, big enough or good enough, but that's how everybody is. But, then I usually ask, like, anybody want to switch places with anybody? I was like, nope.
Because we talked about that too. I'm like, no, I don't want, like, I don't feel, because everyone doesn't feel as if their problems are as bad as they are.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you hear some people's stories, you're like, fuck, like I
Yeah.
can do this. Like
Right.
if that person can do this, I can do this.
Right. Exactly.
And get through it. So it's definitely beneficial all around.
Yeah.
All right, Doc. Well, I mean, I think we had a good episode.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there anything you want to say before we take off?
Yeah, no, just that keep doing this, man. I'm
I
so proud of
appreciate it.
you. You know, I think this is wonderful, new way to heal. And I think that that's the other thing too, is that there is life after
Yes, there is.
that, career. I'm obviously an example of that.
Yeah.
You're an example of that. And I think that sometimes when you're in that first responder community, you can feel like this is the only thing I know. This is the only thing I can do.
Right.
And it is a really neat, unique career, but you can still retire and be important, or
Right.
you could change careers if need be because of a medical, issue or anything else. And so, we have to, again, open our minds and
Yes.
not be so,
Close-minded.
close-minded.
100%.
So, yeah.
And I agree with you 1,000%. I struggled with it for a long time of like,
Yeah.
what's next? What's
It's
next? Because you become, I was like the person who brought income to my family and make sure and then everything changed and it's not there anymore. And there's a different path and it's fine. It's just a different step in my journey. Everything's meant to be what's supposed to be. And, one thing I would say before we take off is that you're stronger than you really think you are.
Yes.
Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And the mountain in front of you might seem like it's not being able to climb, or it's too high for you to climb, or too troublesome for you to climb. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's take one step,
Right.
see where you go. Take the next step, see where you go. And
Yep.
before you know, you're gonna be halfway up that mountain.
Right. Everybody can make
Yes.
a new path in the forest. It
Yes,
just is a little work.
you just gotta put the work in.
Yep.
But we appreciate you guys tuning into another episode of Beyond the Dispatch. I appreciate it. Hit that like, subscribe button. We appreciate you coming in, and thank you. You've done a lot of good for me in my life, and I have nothing but thanks for you and love in my heart for you, and we really do appreciate it. And my family appreciates you.
Thank you.